Now to Joburg, and Joburg Water is warning that we are likely to experience a few more days of intermittent water supplies, but the crisis has highlighted that we need more reservoirs and towers in the City of Gold, and it's not simply a matter of relaxing if the dams are full, which they currently are. Let's look at the critical lessons we need to take on board now from what we've gone through in this past week. I'm joined by water scientist Ayesha Laher. Ayesha, thank you so much for your time. I'm so sorry to keep you waiting. It's been a very busy half an hour. I wonder, everyone's weighed in on what the problem is. I wonder if you could just give us your assessment on the underlying problems that have led to what we've seen this week, specifically in Johannesburg.
Good evening, Sally, and thank you from a very hot Pretoria, I must say. Remember, the water is produced by Water, which is located on the Vaal Dam. So the water is to be pumped and all the way up to Johannesburg, Tshwane, Ekurhuleni, etc. As we've heard from Water, they are currently throttling the supply because of issues they've said regarding load shedding. So during load shedding, the pumps cannot operate and they cannot supply water, so the water cannot be pumped. The problem is exacerbated because all of the clients, Tshwane, Ekurhuleni, etc., cannot further pump that water within their own reticulation networks, and we end up with getting less supply. People are using the water all the time, but the supply is intermittent, so it's like you opening the tap and trying to fill that bucket at the same time. You cannot get the reservoirs to the level that they are supposed to be, and we are then experiencing the water shortages.
My understanding is that some of the water system, and you know better than me, is excluded from load shedding. Is that true?
Not that I'm aware at the moment. The way our systems are set up, there is no systems that are excluded. So all the networks, the reservoirs, etc., are all part of the load shedding. There is no division that's set up that excludes it from load shedding.
We also, and this is an ongoing thing, maintenance of our water system is also a problem. Has that played a part? Because yesterday I was speaking to people who were talking about Eikenhof, Palmit, problems there of maintenance, breakdowns, etc., and trips.
Sally, that is an endemic problem in our municipalities, lack of maintenance. So we look at the number of issues that leads to this. First of all, remember the aging infrastructure within our cities. For example, Johannesburg, some of the infrastructure is more than 50 years old. So we're looking at aging infrastructure that requires a replacement. It doesn't help you fix a leak at one point because the leak will continue further downstream. Also, the lack of maintenance schedules, people, systems, procedures for maintenance as well. One of the other issues, Sally, if I might add, is that the population has increased significantly, and we do not see that the rate of the reticulation network being aligned to the population growth. So there are not many reservoirs that have been built. The treatment plant may have increased, but the reticulation network is not increased. The reservoirs have not increased. The inlet pipes that are coming into the reservoirs and feeding the reservoirs have not increased. So we have got the same amount of water that is there, but the population has significantly increased over time.
So speaking to Michael Sun yesterday, of course, is the outgoing DA, Environment and Infrastructure MMC in Johannesburg. He says there are a lot of projects to build more water towers and reservoirs. And he's concerned that with the change of political leadership, they might put some of those projects on hold, particularly as we're heading into election, to do something that's more visible. Because after all, you can't see a pipe. It's a little bit like buying socks. You can't see a pipe that's well maintained. And it's not particularly thrilling for the voters. But of course, when everything goes wrong, as we've seen with Eskom, it's headline news every day and it affects every aspect of our lives. Are we heading, in your view, for a similar crisis in our water situation?
Let me not be pessimistic, but I think we are already there. It's just that we choose not to look at the problem. We currently have a supply of water that is coming in, throttled 100%. When load shedding hits or there is a pipe interruption, we end up with a water scarcity. We have not acknowledged that we have a water scarcity issue in Gauteng. So yes, the political interferences obviously hampers the rolling out of critical programs such as these. Um, I, I'm always amazed to understand why we do not have standby generators at all our reservoirs to ensure that we can pump during load shedding, because load shedding has been with us more than 10 years. But it seems like we don't have this critical piece of infrastructure to ensure that we can at least deliver the water that we are getting. So yeah, the balancing act at municipalities, it may not be the exciting thing to do and the visible thing to do, but there are critical issues that need to be addressed. And you know, Sally, speaking about one of the things that are not, let's say, what the public doesn't see and what's not so favorable in the eyes of the voters, is issues of illegal connections, is issues of billing, of paying for your waters, for paying for your water, for tampering with meters. These are all underlying issues that end up contributing towards non-revenue water. So it may not be the most popular thing to do, but we as consumers should look at ourselves as well and ask, are we using water wisely? Are we paying our bills on time? Are we ensuring that we're not illegally connected? All these issues are contributing towards this problem.
Yeah, so it's a lot to think about, and it's important stuff that needs to be addressed. And I think for many of us in Gauteng, this week it really hit home because we're grappling with a heat wave, load shedding, and then no water. And that really is a miserable way to live. And, you know, it's something that has to be addressed because at the same time, of course, we're also trying to get water and power to people who've never had it. But then if water and power that is established, those lines, those reticulation systems are in place and then it fails, we're actually going backwards, aren't we, if we don't get this right?
Yes, that's very true. We need to ensure that the system that we do have has gotten is intact and is working. So that is one of the key items that is always missing, because maintenance issues on existing infrastructure is always shelved because we are looking into addressing backlogs, which is what we do need to do. But there must be some kind of a balance between the two. We cannot let the current infrastructure go down while we are facing issues of backlogs. And, you know, programs like leak detection programs in the existing infrastructure, meter and pipe replacements, it's critical to ensure that this all carries on in the existing infrastructure that we have. So, yes, it is a very difficult situation for municipalities, difficult balancing act. But I think we need clearly set out plans as to what we're going to do going forward. Because this problem is not going to go away. It's going to be increase over time. As you know, with increasing population, there has to be some kind of a plan in place to deal with this.
Absolutely. So we need a plan. What should be first on that plan, in your view? What is the most important thing to address for our long-term safety of our water system?
I would say the short-term interventions to deal with load shedding would be installation of generators, backup power at your reservoir, so that at least we have a constant supply coming through when there is load shedding. That would be the first thing. Secondly, then we'd have to have some technical interventions by municipalities to address leaks in the pipes, pipe bursts, and obviously replacement of infrastructure. But that is big long-term plans, and those are capital-intensive plans that they have to implement. Short-term interventions, obviously, I'm very happy to look at, you know, we don't look at the public awareness. Do we, as the members of the public, understand that water is scarce? Do we close the taps? Is there community awareness? City of Cape Town introduced punitive measures together with you know, finding high-end users, and they managed to reduce their water demand by 50% during the 2018 floods. Are we doing that currently in Johannesburg? I don't think we are at that point. We still believe, yeah, there isn't water, but we'll survive. So we can reduce our demand if we are actually aware that there is a problem and admit that water is scarce.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much. Much to think about. Water scientist Ayesha Laher.